Welcome to part two. Welcome to part two. We're just going to study the scriptures really quick. 2 chapters in the Bible. This is going to be fast. I just want to kind of go over some of my thoughts, and Rai's going to go over some of her thoughts on how Jesus connected with people and what we can learn from him. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna be reading. I've got my little Bible here. We're gonna be reading, and
His mission scriptures.
I totally forgot to grab Rai's. She was somewhere before this.
Yeah,
so
here's my scriptures.
Rai's got it on her phone.
Hey, but for those of you that want to follow along, you can pull it up on your phone.
Yes, pull it up on your phone. So we're gonna read in Matthew. Wow, Mark 5 and Luke 15. So Mark 5 is a classic chapter where my Uncle David, if you know David Butler, he's big on this chapter. He calls it like the day in the life of Jesus chapter, which is great. I think there's a ton to learn from this, and I think you get a little glimpse at who Jesus was. And we don't really have time to go over the whole thing, but basically this chapter consists of 3 stories. The first one, Jesus having this guy that comes at him with all these chains, and he's got scars, and he's kind of crazy, and he's possessed with a ton of demons, and Christ casts those demons out. Then the next story is the lady with the issue of blood, and then the last story is him raising the little girl from the dead. And anyways, we'll kind of talk about those 3 stories and little moments that we like about them. So anyways, I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Oh, you can keep
going.
Should
we just jump in?
Yeah, we can just jump in.
Okay, cool. So first scripture I want to read is we're in Mark 5, and they were just like fishing. They had just got out of their ship, and it says in verse 2, and when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. So this is the first story. Guys coming out of the tombs, so like a graveyard is kind of what I picture.
Yeah, or some cave that's like in the mountain. I don't know.
Yeah, like I don't know what their tombs were like. Maybe it was kind of like Jesus's tomb kind of thing back then. Like I don't really know. I don't know what you picture, Rai, but I like either way. Just imagine a guy in our day coming out of a graveyard. Let's do a graveyard to imagine it.
Yeah, he's like hiding behind a tombstone or something.
Yeah, kind of spooky.
Like you don't know what he's doing in there.
And you just got off your boat, and he just, yeah. Anyways, then verse 3 says, who had his dwelling among the tombs. So that's where he didn't just come out of there. That's like where he lives. And it says, no man could bind him, no, not with chains. So, right, what are you feeling in that moment?
I'm just like picturing. I'm picturing a prisoner who's like tied with chains, typically, or like shackles or whatever that usually is constraining somebody. But this man can't even be constrained with chains. And so I just picture him having like some crazy super strength, possession power where he's able to like break those, and like he's probably going crazy. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Like freaky. This dude's freaky.
Freaky guy.
And in verse 4, at the end of verse 4, it says, neither could any man tame him. So it sounds like people have tried, and he's just like this crazy guy. Like maybe the police tried to go there and like take him into jail or something, and he was just...
No one can put him down.
Nobody could tame him. And then in verse 5, it says, and always night and day he was in the mountains and in the tombs crying and cutting himself with stones. Like... my first instinct is, wow, this is like sketchy. If I saw somebody coming out towards me with all these chains, with all these scars and cuts all over him, crying and moaning and like just being scary, like I'd be freaked out.
And you judge him.
For sure.
What you're seeing.
Well, and his reputation is neither could any man tame him. That's like this guy's reputation, is that when I hear the word tame, I think of an animal, like trying to tame a crazy animal. Mm-hmm. And so he's basically been identified by society as this animalistic person that is not welcome anywhere but the graveyard, the tombs, and he's been tried to like be put down or like have chains on him, and they've been unsuccessful. But like that's his reputation. That's how society views him, and probably how he started to view himself. Mm-hmm. And then in verse 6, and when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him. And I can almost picture this like it like almost bring me to tears, just this little part of him that's still in there, that isn't possessed by all these demons, that's like there's some goodness. Like hopefully maybe that person will just give me a chance. Like maybe Jesus will love me when nobody else has, you know? And then in verse 8, sorry, not in verse 8. Yes, verse 8. Sorry, wow. I'm all over the place. Jesus said, "Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit." And then number 9, and he asked him, "What is thy name?" And he answered, saying, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Anyways, and then Jesus proceeds to like send all the demons out, and they go into a big herd of swine, like pigs, that then run down into the water. Kind of crazy. Anyways. But I just picture that interaction he had where Jesus says, like, "Come out of you, you unclean spirit." And like the spirit's out of him. And then the first thing that Jesus asks this man is, "What is your name?" And like the guy's at the point where he doesn't even know his own name anymore. Like the devil's answer for him, like, "My name is Legion, like we are many." And I just like picture me being in a place where I'm like maybe so disappointed in myself, or like I think all these terrible things about myself, like this person or society has identified you as this, and nobody else is going to treat you right. Everybody else is scared of you or trying to tame you. And then you go to Jesus and he just asks you what your name is. And that moment was probably the most healing moment of his entire life, just having somebody actually care and actually identify him as a person for once, you know? And anyways, that just like touches me a lot, and I think shows so much about Jesus's character and teaches us a lot about how we should be treating other people.
Right.
You know?
Well, and I imagine too, like being the apostles and watching Jesus in this interaction, because I'm sure, like if I were there, and I'm sure like the apostles' reaction was like, "Oh my gosh, like a man with chains is running at us, like we're going to run away," which is what they did. They ran away, but Jesus stayed. And like what we don't know is like Jesus saw that man crying in the tombs, cutting himself with stones. Like Jesus saw the moments where he's just beaten himself up and has cried and maybe has knelt down and offered up like a silent prayer to God. Like Jesus has seen those moments even for you. And that's exactly why Jesus treats him with so much love and compassion and doesn't see him for the chains and the animalistic behaviors, but sees him as a son of God and as a child of God. And so I also just love that part where it's like, we have no idea what people are going through, but Jesus knows. And that's why he's like the perfect person to understand situations. And we are not that way. But I think it's a good lesson for us to learn to just be aware that people are going through private storms and battles that we have no idea what that looks like. And it could be something so heavy or so deep or thick. And so we just shouldn't judge them based on like the appearance of what their life is or like what we see them as, because there's just so much more to people than that.
Yeah. Well, and most people I'm sure saw somebody cutting themselves and crying and like all this, especially back then, as like, holy crap, this person's crazy. But Jesus didn't see it that way. Like he saw that and just probably felt so much empathy for this person, probably felt so sad that they felt that lonely and abandoned.
Yeah.
Anyways, we can continue to the next story. Which is, so after all that, let's see, I'm trying to find where we are. Okay, so now we have the story of the lady with the issue of blood. And before we get to the story of the lady of the issue of blood, we kind of introduce the start to the story of the girl that he cured from the dead, that he raised from the dead. Anyways, so you have the story with the issue of blood, and this lady has been struggling for 12 years, and she's felt super unclean. And it says in verse... Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. So first you have this guy, Lazarus, that comes and he interrupts Christ and his disciples. And he says, and he besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. This is verse 23, by the way. And I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and that she shall live. So he's like, my daughter's about to die. Can you please come and help her? And Jesus is like, yeah, let's go. So they start following him. And then 2 verses later, verse 25, it says, And a certain woman had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and she was nothing better, but rather grew worse. And when she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind and touched his garment. So 12 years. I don't know, like they have done lots of studies and assume that this was like a menstrual thing where this lady had this issue of blood, and basically, I mean, I'm not a girl. I don't know like periods. Yeah, I don't have periods. Ryan can probably explain this better. But basically, it sounds like she was on her period for like 12 years straight. And back then, no such thing as like tampons and all that stuff.
Guys, can we imagine that for a second? Can we just take a moment?
Yeah, for all the ladies,
You
let
girls
Ryan
out
explain
there.
it.
Holy crap.
Brutal.
Terrible.
And back then, when you're on your period, in like that their culture,
You're considered unclean.
you're considered unclean. Like even your husband wouldn't like touch you.
Yeah, like
during
if
that
I were
time.
to give Nate a plate, I couldn't, and I'm on my period, I couldn't just give Nate the plate. I'd have to set the plate down on the table, and then he could pick up the plate. Like anything I give to somebody directly, if I'm on my menstrual cycle, is considered unclean as well. Like that's how crazy strict, insane it was back then. And so imagine this woman who is suffering with this for 12 years. Everyone just looking at her with like shame and uncleanliness and all of that type of stuff. Like I couldn't even imagine what that would feel like, even though I am a girl. Like what that would be like.
It'd be terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and basically, just like the first story, this lady was like shunned from society because of her disease. Mm-hmm. And she so desperately wanted to be rid of it that she gave everything she had. All of her money, everything, all of her possessions, gave it to find a cure and couldn't. Mm-hmm. Which leads us to verse 28. So she just, in verse 27, touched his garment. And first she said, this is in verse 28, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And then in verse 30, and Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned about in the press and said, Who touched my clothes? And the disciples said unto him, Thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, Who touched me?
The disciples are probably like, bro, what? Like we're literally surrounded shoulder to shoulder with people.
Yeah,
Like everyone's touching you.
Everybody's touching you, bro. Like, yeah, first off, they started out the morning with a guy in chains running at them. And Jesus just was like chill about it.
Typical morning, you know.
Typical morning. And now they're in the middle of a massive crowd going to heal this guy's daughter. And Jesus just stops mid-crowd. Like, have you ever been in the halls of like middle school or high school or something? Class just got out. It's like a rush to lunch or like your next period. Like that, there's some traffic there.
There is.
And that's just like a middle school hallway. And if you stop, like if you're walking with your buddies and your one buddy just stops, you'd be like, bro.
Oh, you're
like embarrassed.
traffic jam.
Yeah, you're like, what are you doing? Like now everybody has to go around you. So the person right behind you totally just slammed into you probably.
Yeah.
That's what Jesus said. He just stopped and goes, "Who touched me?" And then you're like, dude, this guy's daughter is dying.
Yeah, usually when someone's dying, you're like, emergency,
Yes.
like, ambulance is going as fast as they can,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. And Jesus just stops. And he goes over to this lady when he like kind of finds her on the ground. We skipped a couple verses. And then in verse 34, the very first thing he says to her, verse 34 says, "And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague." And again, just like the first thing he said is, "What is your name?" And this one, first word that comes out of his mouth is daughter. Very first thing he says is, "You are mine. And I love you. And I know that it's been a really lonely 12 years. But I'm here and I love you." And that's the first thing he's like, "You need to know this. Beyond anything else, is that you're my daughter." And he sums up all those feelings and all those emotions in one word.
Yeah.
And like, that's just another little glimpse. Like, that's who Jesus is. Yes, it's amazing that he healed her. That's great. But the more important thing is like the subtleties of him making sure that people feel known and loved. That's what he cares the most about. And that's what us as humans need more than anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, and too, just something that I love. I've always loved this story ever since I was little. And it's because of like the paintings that come from this section of scripture, just how intently Christ is looking at that girl who's been struggling for so long. And I don't know why we endure trials for so long. I can't explain why she had to go through 12 years of this suffering. And she literally, like you said earlier, she had spent all that she had. And oftentimes God is going to ask us to do everything in our power. But like we see in this story, he always comes through. Always, time and time again. And he's just waiting for the perfect moment to be able to like have such a miraculous story for every single person. And so just don't give up on him, because just like this girl who suffered for 12 years she endured, 12 years she continually had faith. That the moment that Christ was put in front of her, all she thought to herself was, let me just at least touch his garment. Like the littlest of the littlest thing you could possibly imagine. And that's what healed her. Like, don't give up on the faith that you have, even if it is little in the times of trial. Like, just depend on God, because he is a God of miracles, period. And those miracles look so different in scripture versus, I feel like, in our real lives. But
so true.
Yeah.
And then
Third story.
The father's probably like, "Bro, let's go."
Oh my gosh, if you're Jairus, I would be freaking out.
Yeah, if you're Jairus, you're like, my daughter's dying, dude. Like, we can't, like, we don't have time for this.
Well, and yeah,
like he's like, this is touching and all, but like, let's go.
Right.
You committed to healing her, so
that was our first mission. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Well, and then right after this, the verse that you read in 34, in 35, it says, "While he yet spake, there came from a ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, Thy daughter is dead." So like, while this is happening, while Jesus is having this perfect, awesome moment with the woman who's suffering with the issue of blood, who's now just been cured, someone's coming up to Jairus and being like, "Hey, sorry, you guys took too long. She's dead." Like, what do you think that he's feeling in that moment? Like, oh, like, you failed me, Jesus. Like why'd we have to stop?
Yeah. Like, we could have made it.
We could have made it. And then the guy in the same verse 35, he says, "Why troublest thou the master any further?" And I don't know about you, but when I read that, it hit me different than it ever had, because oftentimes I don't like to be a burden on people. And many of you might relate to that as well. And that's also conveyed, and I don't want to be a burden to God or to Jesus. And so maybe you're asking yourself, like, why would I trouble God with like my problems? Like, why would I trouble God with my sins or what I'm going through? And I just think it's so important to remember that he not only is so loving, but he cares about every single thing in your life. Literally, he cares about the simplest of things even. And anyways, we continue, verse 36.
But just along with that, like, never be in the mindset of, like, oh, I don't want to trouble him.
Well, yeah, because he's never troubled by you.
No.
Never.
Never, ever.
So if you're thinking that, stop thinking that. Because
Like,
it's
oh,
just,
I don't want to bug him.
Yeah.
Or I don't, like, or this is too small. I don't need God. It's
yeah,
like,
or
as soon
that.
as we get in that habit, it's like, oh, well, or this is, like, she's dead. There's nothing else we can do. Like, I don't need to worry about it anymore. Like, I shouldn't bug him with this.
Yeah.
Like, no, just always.
Yeah, then in
Anyways.
verse 36 it says, as soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he saith unto the ruler of the synagogue, be not afraid, only believe. And so they followed and they went, and he cometh to the house of the ruler of the synagogue and seeth the tumult, and them that wept and wailed greatly. Like they're weeping the sight of the daughter being dead. And so Jesus and Jairus and all of them are pulling up to this, and the apostles. And he goes in and he says, why make ye do this ado and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth, in verse 39. And everyone's like, bro.
Yeah.
Verse 40. And they laughed him to scorn.
Well, they're all rushing about getting the funeral ready. Because back then we didn't have, I don't know what you call it, like the human preservatives. like make a human body, like, look normal for, like, multiple days after they die.
Oh, gosh.
Do you know the word? I don't know what the word is.
I don't know the word.
Human preservatives, I guess. Anyways, they didn't have that back in the day. So like a dead person would pretty immediately start to, like, rot and stink. And so they would try to do the funeral literally, like, that day as soon as they could. So they're probably rushing around
Trying to get everything.
funeral preparations. I don't know what that looked like back in the day, but people are crying, people are running around getting that ready. Like, it's just it's a crazy house, all centered around the fact that this girl is dead. And then Jesus goes, what do you mean? She's just asleep. They're like, no, she's not, bro. Like,
there's no pulse. Like, you can go look.
yeah. Like, what are you saying? And then I love the very last verse. Like, first off, he says, like, in verse 41, damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And which is just kind of like little girl, wake up, you know? And then the very last thing he says in this verse, and the thing that he says to her as soon as she wakes up, and he charged them straitly that no man should know it, and commanded that something should be given her to eat. So she wakes up, and first thing he's like, hey, I don't want any recognition for this. Like, no big deal. And then he's like, please just go get her something to eat. Like, dying and coming back to life, that's probably a pretty exhausting endeavor. And he's not thinking about himself. I imagine, like, probably a lot of, like, energy had been zapped from him. It's been a day so far. But he's just like, first thing he's thinking is, how can I make this girl comfortable, but also feel loved and cared for by me? Same thing as he did in the previous two stories. Like, he's just immediately thinking about them. How can I make them feel loved? And for this 12-year-old girl, it was getting her a little snack. And I just love that. Again, you see another example of Christ's character. Besides the fact that he can heal you and that he can cure your problems, it's that he cares about the little things. He cares about you knowing who you are and you knowing how loved and taken care of you are by him. And so, leading back to what we talked about at the beginning, if we want to make heaven on earth, if we want to help people feel loved and not so lonely in a world of so much loneliness, let's just do what Christ would do. Let's just be Christians, and let's make people feel loved and help people know who they are and whose they are. But I think we'll just end our scripture study there.
Yeah, I hope this was a little.
I hope this is good. We were maybe going to do another chapter, but I think that was good. And comment please if you like this style of like us doing kind of a scripture study. And maybe we'll do more in the future.